Hey guys, it's Shiv Haria here from Lifestyle Property People, and today I wanted to talk to you about the new Renters Reform Bill. This is a conversation that was started back in 2019, and now recently it's come through the Houses of Parliament. Now, I want to make it clear, this is not law yet, but it is legislation that's meant to simplify agreements and make it easier for landlords and tenants to get along, and ultimately to offer greater security for landlords and tenants. Now, what is in this bill? I'm going to talk you through a couple of the points that are out there for discussion. As I said, they're not a law yet, but this is what we think is going to be coming through. The first is the abolition of the Section 21 notice. The Section 21 notice currently allows landlords to evict tenants without giving any valid reason. So they can just say, look, I want to evict you, see you later, and the tenant has to move out. Now, that, of course, doesn't offer very much security to the tenant. And as a tenant who's living in a property, you might have lived there for, your whole life. And then all of a sudden the landlord says, I want to, get rid of you. And there's no reason behind it. It just feels a little bit unfair. I'm sure everyone agrees that, it's not really that much of an issue to give a tenant a reason for evicting them. And that is where the Section 8 notice comes in. The Section 8 notice that is currently in place allows you to evict tenants because of a breach of tenancy. And usually that means that they haven't paid rent, for example. So if they've breached the tenancy, you can serve them a Section 8 notice. And what the government's going to do is they're going to try and increase the grounds to which the Section 8 notice applies. And that's going to include, number one, if you're selling your home. So if you're selling your home, you can then just use a Section 8 notice and you'll be able to sell your home. Or the second is that if you want to move into your own property that that you're renting out currently, you can use a Section 8 notice, give the tenants the reason that you want to move into your own property, and then they have to vacate the property. So the whole point is that although they're abolishing the Section 21 notice, they're going to make it easier and simpler for us to use a Section 8 notice. And so really there shouldn't be that much of an issue with moving from one to the other. The second thing is the abolition of tenancy renewals and tenancy renewal fees that go with them as well. At the moment, at the end of the initial fixed term period, let's say 6 months, for example, at the end of that period, the tenant then has to renew, and that costs the landlord some money, and there's some paperwork there for no real reason whatsoever. Sometimes what the landlord chooses to do, this is what I choose to do, is after the initial 6 months, we then go on to a periodic tenancy, a fixed renewal. It's a month-by-month contract, and as and when the tenant wants to vacate or the landlord wants to vacate, you can give each other the relevant notice. So that's what we think is going to happen, is we're going to move away from kind of locking tenants in for a 12 or 18 month period. And instead of that, after the initial term, everyone will just be on a periodic tenancy, and you can just give yourselves the relevant notice to vacate from that tenancy agreement. The next point that came in was the end of discrimination, specifically when it comes to benefit tenants and also people that have pets. Now, look, we've been through the pandemic, and more people these days have pets. And pets, whereas previously used to be a bit of a luxury, now they are seen almost as a bit of a necessity. You have a pet and it kind of keeps you sane a little bit. And the government have realized that, and they're acknowledging the need for pets and the reason for pets in our society at the moment. And as a result, they're saying that you can't just refuse to give a tenant a home just because they have a pet. So you can still, as a landlord, not refuse to give the tenant a place for various other reasons. For example, there's another better tenant or whatever, but it can't be on the grounds that they either are benefit tenants or that they have pets. The next point on this Renters Reform Bill was to try and increase, the whole reason for this is to increase the standards in the private rented sector. So at the moment across the UK, the standards of properties in the private rented sector vary hugely. Some are amazing, you've got all the safety requirements, you've got very, very nice amenities. On the other end, you've got some shocking places that probably shouldn't be allowed, and they are just flying under the radar at the moment. The whole purpose of this Renters Reform Bill is to say, well, if you want to rent your property out, it has to be at a specific standard. And those standards are twofold. One is from a safety perspective. So we all know about Grenfell and the cladding issues. We also know about, gas and electric safety certificates that we need to have done now. But also on the other side, we have energy efficiency standards. So going forward, we're going to have all of our properties need to be an EPC of, C or above, is what the government's saying, in order for us to rent our properties out. And, ultimately, if you're a tenant and you're staying in a property and the EPC is really, really bad, let's say it's an E, then it's going to cost you a lot more to heat your property, and which is not such a good thing, especially in the current market with the energy prices rising exponentially. The last point on this renters reform bill, it all comes down to having a register of landlords. Again, I don't think this is really like too much. It's not really going to affect anybody too much, but everybody who is a landlord at the moment, there's no requirement to be on any register. And going forward, the government wants you to be on a register, say, yes, I'm a landlord, I own this property. And that doesn't seem like too much of an issue at all. So there you go. There are the 5 points that we have right now for discussion on the renters reform bill. Those are my thoughts on it. I don't think it's going to be too much of an upheaval. And I think ultimately the whole point of this is to make the rental sector better, to make it easier for us to evict tenants for valid reasons, and also to make sure that you don't have landlords running around evicting tenants for no reason whatsoever, which makes no sense, because you'd only typically tend to evict a tenant if you're a landlord if you want your property back, or if they haven't paid the bill, if they've breached the contract. So that should all be fine, pretty self-explanatory. This is probably going to come in over the next sort of 6 to 12 months. So look out for it, and I look forward to hearing and speaking to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.